What's up, you guys, and welcome back to Cooking with Adrianne and Latrice. Today, we're going to be cooking up some T-bone steak. So look how big and juicy that T-bone steak is. I'm going to show you guys how to make it well done. I like to season it with some Montreal steak seasoning, and then you could top it off with a little salt and pepper. If you don't have any Montreal steak seasoning, that's okay. You can always use good old classic salt and pepper and you'll still get an amazing taste. Then I like to add a little vegetable oil and butter to the pan to give it like some sauce, because I do baste my steak as I cook it. And then of course, once the steak is done, you want to add some delicious steak sauce. My favorite is A1, but of course you can use any steak sauce you like. Alright, let's get to cooking. Okay, you guys, what I've done here is put 1 top full of the vegetable oil. And I've added several spoonfuls of butter. It really doesn't matter how much butter you add, but I really like to make it like a sauce. As you can see here, it's nice and saucy before I start cooking my steak, because this is going to become like a base where you could continue to base your steak, and I'll show you exactly what I mean in just a moment. So I'm going to turn the fire up to medium. Then I'm going to go ahead and add this juicy, delicious steak to the fire. Now on this side here, what I'm going to do is go ahead and add my Montreal seasoning first. You can just sprinkle a little bit on top. You don't have to put too much. Just add a little layer of the seasoning on top. Then you can go ahead and put a little bit of salt. I really don't measure it. I mean, you could put a pinch of salt all over the steak. Or you could just, for the people who are more advanced, you can kind of just sprinkle a layer of salt on top, and I can see how much I'm placing on there. Then I'll go ahead and do the same thing for pepper. I'm going to just sprinkle a little bit of pepper on top of the steak as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to let the bottom of the steak cook for at least 5 minutes before I flip it over. Okay, you guys, so this is after like 5 or 6 minutes. I've seared it on the other side. Now I'm going to go ahead and flip it over. As you can see, it's already have like a nice little sear there. Now what I'm going to do on this side is add some Montreal seasoning again. Make sure you give a nice little layer. Try not to overdo it, just a nice thin layer of the seasoning. Then you want to go ahead and do the same thing. Repeat the steps with the salt and pepper. Just add a little layer of salt and a thin layer of pepper. Okay, now at this stage, while the other side is cooking, we've added our seasoning to this side. Now, as you can see all of this good juice here, you can start picking up some of this juice with a spoon and basting your meat. And this is what I mean by basting. You're just taking the juices from the butter and the oil and from the meat, and you're just adding it on top of the meat. And that actually gives it a really nice flavor at the end. So definitely do not skip this step. If you notice that your juices are running a little low, I would recommend just adding a couple more scoops of butter to the pan, and that'll really give it more flavor, more juice that you need to make it work. So I'm just adding a little bit more butter. Me personally, I like mine to be nice and juicy, and I love to baste it while I'm cooking. It just makes me feel like it's making it tender, it's giving it that flavor. You can also take a fork or a knife and kind of stab the meat a little bit. And the purpose of this is just to add like little filter holes. That way, as you're cooking, the heat could filter through the meat and cook it faster and more well done, because this is a well done tutorial. So I love my meat to be well done. I don't like any pink. So that's the purpose of me stabbing it, to create the little filter holes to allow the steam to travel through quickly and make sure my meat is getting done. So I'm going to go ahead and let this side cook for 5 minutes, and then I'll flip it over and we're going to repeat those same steps. Every time you flip your steak over, you want to baste it. This is a very important step that you do not want to miss. And again, it'll add that really nice juicy flavor that you're looking for. Alright, we're going to check back in after I flip it a few more times. We'll check back in and see what it looks like. Okay, so now my steak is about midway done. You can tell when it's midway because on each side you'll see a nice brown layer. And I have been basting it the whole time, making sure those juices are getting in and creating little filter holes to make sure the steam is coming through to get it well and done. So now when it's midway done, I like to just add a little bit more seasoning, the Montreal seasoning, just a small little layer on top. Add a little bit more salt. And the reason I'm adding just a pinch more seasoning is because a lot of the seasoning, when you're flipping it over, it gets in the juice. So I like to have a little bit more added on the actual steak just to make sure my flavors are there. So I just added a little bit more seasoning, and now I'm going to just repeat those steps. I'm going to continue to baste for a few more minutes on each side, and then I'll show you how you could check your steak to make sure that it's well done. Okay, now after I flipped it back and forth several times, as you can see, it's nice and brown. It's getting browner and more darker on each side, and that's an indication that your steak might be done and well done. Is how we like it. So I'm going to go ahead and check that. And the easiest way to check that is to take a knife and some sort of fork and make sure you turn down the fire, and then just simply cut through the thickest piece of your steak. Just cut a little piece through. Make sure you find the thickest part of your steak to cut through. And then once you cut it, make sure it's fully cut through. Just lift it up and look at that. Look at that meat. There's no pink. No pink at all. So that lets me know the steak is done. After you finish cooking your steak, it is very important to let it rest. And what I mean by that is we're going to take it off, put it on a plate. And I did have another delicious steak that I cooked prior to this one. So I'm going to sit this steak on the same plate with my husband's steak. And then I'm going to let it sit and rest. It is so important that you like to let the steak rest and let it sit for a minute before you indulge. Alright, you guys, so here's my finishing product. I made my well done T-bone steak, topped it off with some yummy, delicious A1 sauce, and then I made some cabbage and some smoked turkey on the side. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Please try this recipe at home. Don't get discouraged if you see a big piece of meat. You could tackle it just as I did in this video. I hope you try it. I hope you enjoy. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and comment if you enjoyed this video, and share it. I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you for cooking with Adrianne Latrice.